The gaming industry needs a reset, and it's inevitable. While it's grown at an unprecedented rate in recent years, this growth has been built on a foundation of unsustainable practices. Development costs for AAA games have skyrocketed. With budgets often reaching 9 figures, AAA games are just taking longer and longer to develop. These asinine budgets are driven by the demand for cutting-edge graphics and expansive open worlds, and I don't think any of that is really necessary. Because of this insane level of greed, these publishers are relying on aggressive monetization strategies, and we're getting tired of it. Microtransactions, season passes, and loot boxes have plagued these video games, and gamers are starting to wake up. What's been confusing me is that I feel like these publishers would have noticed that this is a failing strategy. When a huge AAA game underperforms, it becomes devastating, not only for the publisher, but for the developers as well. When studios get shut down and developers get laid off, people's lives are ruined. Studios like Riot Games and Bungie have set the standard for corporate greed. League of Legends having skins that take upwards of $200 to obtain. Destiny selling you expansions and taking them away from you, backed with the excuse that the content cannot fit into the game because there's not enough space. And I'll say, it's not just Bungie's fault. It's also the content creators that allowed that to happen. I feel like we as a community didn't fight hard enough against this practice. It's like, oh, if the content sucks and it's bad, like just remove it, who cares, you know? Oh, I spent that money a year ago, it doesn't matter now, you know, just remove the content. Why not? These corporations are observing us. They know our psychology. They've gotten into our heads. They've convinced the consumers that they can't fight back. They've convinced us that we do not have the freedom of choice. But the reality is, we do. I think people have grown a lack of empathy for these developers. How can you not feel bad about the unnecessary layoffs that are happening in this industry right now? Even when developers are doing their best, even when games are incredibly successful, people are still getting laid off. Look at what happened with Marvel Rivals. I've seen Reddit threads of people being completely okay with the layoffs that happened there. They're saying, oh, it's just business. You know, layoffs happen all the time. But it's like that game is so flabbergastingly successful, you would think that the company would show the people responsible for making their game so successful a little more respect. I've also seen an utter lack of respect from the community for the people that worked on this game that got laid off. They don't care. They just don't care. They just want more slop, more content, more slop. Feed it to me. I want to eat it. I'm hungry. The greed of these corporations have turned their consumers into gluttons. Even if it is typical to lay off people regardless of the success of the game, it shouldn't be. Why does it have to be this way? And why does everybody seem to be so okay with it? These nonchalant, complacent consumers have enabled these corporations to screw over not only their development teams, but the consumers. The consumers are okay with being screwed over. They don't care. And that's not to say I'm speaking for everyone. Of course I'm not. We're all different. But if you go to the Marvel Rivals Reddit and you just look up layoffs, you will see so many people in support of the layoffs. It's insane. They love it. They're perfectly okay with it. It's just good business, Jack. Imagine you're working on this game, you're putting your heart and soul into it, you have so much emotion put into what you've created, and now you're on Reddit reading comments about, hey, you just needed to go. You know, they needed to get rid of the bottom line and you needed to go. I mean, how would you feel? How would you feel if you spent years of your life investing it? And yeah, sure, you're making money, but people get attached to the things that they do. I mean, is money everything? Are we supposed to feel? These people go to school, they spend a chunk of their life learning how to do this. They get into a big company. They are responsible for a very successful game that is worth billions of dollars more than they are. And they're laid off. And you know what? I hope that the consumers that feel no empathy for the developers that are getting laid off of these video games never have to experience a termination letter written completely by artificial intelligence. I mean, have you ever been denied a refund by DoorDash? Because that actually happened to me today. I was denied a refund from DoorDash, $37.33 for an order from Shake Shack that I never received. And you know what the people on the phone said? "I'm sorry, sir. It's just our policy." Now, I know I didn't receive that food, but guess what? They don't care. They're going to hand me the same outsourced person on the phone and the same outsourced person on the text chat because rejection is their business model. How many hoops do I have to go through to get my money? These corporations have built layers and layers of defense to demoralize us, the consumers, from complaining. I'm sure you understand. Think about all the calls that you've had to make where you've tried to get your bills paid or tried to get a refund for something, and you have to go through a robot that is giving you a billion different options, and the number that you so desperately need to click to get to the agent that you need to speak to handle the business that you need to handle is the very last number that the robot is going to tell you. And when you say, "Hey, I need an agent," the robot will go, "Well, hold on just a minute. Before we get you to that agent, we would love to hear what's wrong." After all of this, you finally get to the agent that you're trying to speak to, and there's some outsourced person with a fake name that you can't communicate with properly, an underpaid white-collar zombie that is there to defend the corporation from you. If you've ever had to fight over the phone to make a medical bill cheaper, you know exactly what I'm talking about. "Hey, I just can't afford this bill, could you make it cheaper?" "Sir, I'm not sure if I can do that without the approval of my supervisor. Can you just give me one moment?" 3-minute hold. "Sir, I can take 20% off of your bill, but I cannot go any lower than that." 20% is just not enough. I really need more of a discount. I can't pay this. 3-minute hold. "So, sir, I was actually able to get 25%, and I'm not sure if my supervisor is going to let me go any lower than that." "Well, sorry, I'm just not going to be able to pay that bill today." "No worries, sir. Would you like for us to speed up the process of your bill going to a final notice, sending that bill to collections, and having them harass you instead?" "No, sorry, I'll pay it. The average video game consumer has become the outsourced person on the phone defending that corporation, but for free. These companies have turned us against each other. They don't even have to do the work anymore. The consumers will do it for them. Consume, defend. These consumers think that if they don't defend these companies, these video games that these companies are making will no longer exist for them to consume. These corporations know us. They know that we're going to get tired of complaining, that we're just going to be complacent, that we're going to give up. But we shouldn't. We shouldn't give up. If we allow the gaming industry to continue down this trend, it's going to crash. And honestly, I think it's inevitable. I have no confidence that my message is going to go anywhere. I think a few people will get to this point in the video and they'll have something to say, whether it's positive or negative, but I think people just aren't interested in things changing for the better. We have to speak up against these practices. The games industry is headed toward an inevitable crash. These companies aren't learning from their mistakes, and the responsibility is on us, the consumers, to make these corporations feel the pain for their greedy business practices. I can only hope that we as a collective step up to the plate before it's too late. On Final Weapon's flagship podcast, Weaponized, my co-founder Noah Hunter and I often talk about the video games industry. We pride Final Weapon in being the very antithesis to the modern video games journalism industry. If you want no clickbait, transparent reporting, check us out at finalweapon.net or follow us on our Twitter @FNLWPN.